So hey, this is Medea with the Underground Railroad. Today we have a friend of mine on the show, Jay. She's from California. I met her out here. We were where did we
Finding it out.
Oh yes. So I met her. We were doing a show, like we did audience work out here, and so we were talking, and we just vibed together, like positive vibes connected us. And I just wanted to ask her about, like, we started to talk about the prosperity thinking and just the movement and where it came from, like where she may have heard it from. I know that I've been studying about the law of attraction for the last 2 years, and it's really, really changed my life. And I just want to spread the word about it, about how you can attract certain things into your life by thinking positive, and how we really want to get our people out of the poverty mindset, and how that can just affect your life in such a negative way. Just to so anyway, Jay, how did you come about the prosperity thinking?
Well, wow, that's a great question. It took for me to fall into a hole of poverty to really understand what money is, how money works, um, the power of money. Because I grew up in a middle class family, mom and dad household. My mom didn't work, my dad was the breadwinner. So, I mean, we lived in a house, two-story house. We moved around here and there, but we always lived in a house. My mom kind of stayed home, and she had like a little business that she ran. It was more like a hobby, an art gallery. So my dad kind of provided that environment for her so she could be there for us. So it was a little bit unusual in my neighborhood. There were definitely families in my neighborhood. Most of the moms and dads worked if it was, a two-parent household. But there were tons of single parents, and some of them were in like what some might consider to be a lower middle class bracket. And then, of course, there were some people in the neighborhood who were straight up lower class. So it was a nice mix of people in the neighborhoods.
And where are you from?
I am from the East Coast.
Okay.
Maryland area, Virginia.
Nice.
Over in that area. So, growing up in that area, you saw all levels of income in the Black community. But most of the people who had wealth lived in the suburbs of Maryland, if they were Black. People that lived closer into the city, like not so much the suburbs, but more like the city areas of the Maryland, Virginia areas, the people with wealth were more white that lived in the city, and then you had more middle class and lower class Blacks.
As a lot of places do.
Yeah, in the city. But there was a lot of community there with the Black people. So, there was a good mix. I had friends that lived in the projects, Section 8 housing, and I had friends who lived in homes, and then I had some friends that lived in the suburbs. You had to go out to see them. Some of my cousins lived out in the suburbs. So for me, money was not ever a really big issue. Like, there was always money around. Like, if stuff was needed, we got what we needed. We never were worried about food or anything like that. It was more like an overabundance of food. Because, like, I remember my parents gaining weight and being like, "Oh, we got to cut back." And then next, they had some exercise equipment in the house. So, it wasn't like they was in there struggling or anything like that. And so it was kind of a shock for me when I relocated to LA. I had some money that my parents had left, and I was ignorant as to what to do with that money, or how to make that money last.
Right.
And it was like everything got kind of squandered in a way. I'm not going to say it was completely squandered, because some of it I did invest into myself, where, I was pursuing a career in acting in the entertainment industry. So I did invest into classes, learning how to produce, understanding writing, how the industry worked, things like that. I did that off and on. I started producing. So I did take the money and kind of put it towards my dream. But that's all I did was take it and just funnel it into the dream. I didn't think about like, well, maybe I should take some of it and put it over here to grow it or have something to sit on. I was just putting everything in. I was spending. I was going shopping.
And unfortunately, that is the difference between the middle class households and the wealthy households, or households that have a lot more money, because they teach their kids how to invest and what to do with money. Like once they get something of a big, maybe like an inheritance or something like that, they teach their kids the difference between, oh, okay, here, spend it on this and spend it on that. Because I know in my household, we never wanted for anything. I didn't know that we were, middle class or low class, or probably we were like lower middle class. My parents split up when I was about 6 years old. So we always had stuff. Like we shopped at Marshalls and TJ Maxx and things like that. So I'm thinking that we had nice stuff. But my mom also worked 2 jobs and things like that. And my parents never told me about investments and things that the wealthy household would know about as children.
So the big thing in my household, so the way that I grew up, it was kind of, it was, I have to say, it was unique amongst most of my friends, because money was something that was always given to me from a very young age. I was always given money. Right. So it was like birthdays, Christmas, Easter. We just ain't seen you in a minute. Mm-hmm. We just, like aunts, uncles, older cousins, people, they just always would hand you money. That, as soon as they see you, they'd be like, hey, baby girl, what's good with you? Hey, got something for you. Here you go. Give you a little $5, $10 or something, go get you some candy, my grandma and them, they used to buy me like little earrings and jewelry and stuff from a young age. So there was a sense of abundance, and like, there was always like, it seemed like nobody was hurting for money.
Right.
Around, in my immediate family. And I think that without the education to really understand, and then it was a different time then, because like my grandma, she had a pension. Mm-hmm. From where she used to work, and I think my grandfather, my step-grandfather, who she was married to, he was driving a cab, so he was bringing in like an income, but I think she had money, like a check coming in or something, and they used to travel quite frequently, so, right. That was like a different time, because that's kind of what retired people did. Yes. Like they had their pension, plus he had his little money he was bringing in from, driving a cab whenever he wanted to, he drove it when he wanted to. It wasn't like he had to drive it. I think he did that to make sure they had a little extra money. And then they would go to Egypt, Jerusalem. Mm-hmm. They'd be gone, be like, where grandma? Grandma gone for a month. They went on a cruise for 2 months,
Did you travel as a child?
A little bit. I traveled to see family members. Now, on my mom's side, they were pretty low income from what I could tell. Okay. They came from a low income background. So I felt like my grandma and my mom's generation had moved up financially. Right. But the people that we saw, they lived okay. They lived in the Ohio area. But we also did like family reunions, and we would do it at a shack in West Virginia. And they'd be like, yeah, this is where great-great-grandma. And I'm like, ew. I'm like, great-great-grandma used to live in this one-bedroom shack? What the hell is this, It was kind of weird. It was kind of cool and kind of creepy when you were a kid, but you also was like, right, people lived here? Right. Like, it was hard to even understand that, people lived, like, that was, there's an outhouse and somebody was using that, like, daily.
And then you're happy, like, oh, I'm glad that I don't live here, or I didn't have to live like this.
Exactly. So I think, like, I remember my grandma giving me savings bonds when I was a kid, and I remember at a certain point I wanted to spend them, and my mom was totally fine with this. Like, they hadn't matured yet. And instead of her saying, like, no, mm-hmm. this is an investment, we're going to wait and let it mature, she was like, oh, you want to spend it? You sure? Okay. And then I would dip into the savings bonds, and it would be over something silly, like stuff I don't even remember what I spent it on.
Right.
And then the other thing my dad was really good about was saving money. And I'll tell you this, I discovered this when I took a class that was basically like a group therapy um, for people who had money issues. But we uncovered like what are your first memories of money,
right,
in your family life, in your household. And a lot of people that have problems with money have very negative memories, first memories of money. Where was I going with that? Oh, one of my first memories is that my dad, it wasn't negative, it was actually kind of positive, but it was somewhat of a double-edged sword, and it was positive, but it had like a negative outcome later on. So here's what it was. He would be like, oh, save your money, because at Christmas, everybody would give us money. So we had maybe $200, right? Mm-hmm. You know, to a kid back then, you like 12 years old, you got 200, you like falling, right? So my dad would be like, okay, put that away, you know, and see how much of it you can save by the time, you know, he give us some deadline by your birthday, you're going to get, and I'll double it. Right. My birthday is in February, so I would hold on to, I would save all of it. So then boom, I have $400, and then you know what he would take us to do? Shop. And spend it all. And spend all of it. And so what I noticed when I went into poverty after having, and they talk about this, people can get like big sums of money and end up down, like lower than they were when they started. Yes. And I saw that happen, and I was like, how did this happen? And when I went and took this group therapy called The Psychology of Money, it was uncovered that was a habit. So every time I would get lump sums of money, I would just feel compelled to spend it. And it gave me a certain amount of joy because it was fun, because I would double the money. And then, you know, my dad would take us out and we'd go shop and buy things. It was like a fun, almost like a fun family experience and memory. But I would spend all the money. And I would have things that go out of style, things that get used up, things that don't last. And so it was interesting because when my parents passed on and they left us with life insurance and they left us with, you know, property and things like that, my brother and I, we just had absolutely no idea how to hold on to it. Right. And we both had bad spending habits. And so he ran out of money. I ran out of money faster than him, but we both still like zeroed out. Like we both tried to, you know, start our own businesses and stuff like that, but without understanding how to invest some money to have that cushion there to like where, okay, you're gonna put some money into your business, but you got this other piece that you can fall back on if something doesn't work out or if there's an emergency. Without that, we both went flat broke and struggled. I struggled harder than him because I was out in LA. And that when I hit that rock bottom point and I was like on public assistance, and I was like just trying to figure out like, how did I get here? How do I get out of this?
That's nothing that you never
I was like, I'm not used to this. Like it was just the weirdest.
I didn't know what food stamps was until I turned like 19, 20 years old. I didn't know that there was such a thing called food stamps. We had never been, you know, on any food stamps. So just like you said about the public assistance, I didn't know anything about it.
And there was a lot of shame attached to it initially too, because even when I was, I had some money and one of my friends came to me and was like, you know, you should get on food stamps. Everybody just acting is doing, you know, unemployment, food stamps, like, I was like, I don't need that. I'm not one of those people.
Right.
But now I look back and I'm like, that would have been actually a smart move because I would have been able to preserve some of what I had. Money. Yeah. And still be able to kind of like, you know, work with, like I could have taken that money and invested it. But at the time I wasn't even anywhere in that mindset. But that's when I started looking into it because I'm like, okay, there are people who have started their whole life. They've started at this level and they get out of it. How do they do it?
Right.
And so I started looking into that, and it's amazing, like law of attraction, you say, because it's like as soon as I turned towards that, everything came rushing to me. All the information, all the knowledge just became like, when I first got the inheritance, I remember a couple people saying, you need to read this book called Rich Dad, Poor Dad. And I was like, oh, okay, yeah, I'll get to it. I was busy reading books about, you know, how to change my image, how to brand myself, things that were pertaining to the industry. So I thought I was making an investment into myself, which I was, but it wasn't one that was going to benefit me financially right away. And then once I read his book, it really opened my eyes to the fact that I'm not interested in being self-employed, because I did try that. And being self-employed is just you working twice as hard for less money, because typically when you're an employee, you're working hard, but you got that steady paycheck, you get a vacation, you have all little benefits and things, and it's like you working 9 to 5, that's it, you go home. When you are working for yourself, you never stop working. You're always working, you're always focused on whatever it is you're trying to accomplish. And usually you're making very little money, especially in the first few years. And that's what I found out, is that I was making very little money. I was making some headway in my career. I was producing plays, I was on TV, but I was a new face. I was, so I couldn't really command much in the way of payment. I was not breaking even on my productions, but we were getting great feedback. Everybody loved them. They wanted us to do more. But it's like, this is the beginning when you're doing your own business. So you have to build up. And I think that's what a lot of people don't realize about being entrepreneurs. They think they're going to jump in and then somebody going to come and either buy it within the first year, or they're going to start balling within the first year, making all this money. And it's like the amount of work that you have to put in. So when I looked at how he broke down his cash flow quadrants, and he was talking about the motivations for why you are in certain positions, that's when I was like, oh, okay. So I did write some notes down on this the other day because I was reviewing it. Let me pull that up. Is there something you want to share?
Just about the Rich Dad, Poor Dad, because this is a very, very good book, and I think that everyone should read it. I actually bought the Rich Kid, Smart Kid for a few of my nephews and cousins, and I gave it out for like Christmas, because these are not things, just like she said, we don't know how to invest money, we don't know how to spend money. And I say this all the time, that families sometimes set their kids up for failure.
They really do.
When they are not talking to them about money, when they're not telling them, okay, this is how you are supposed to spend your money, this is how, if you're just buying your kids stuff and they don't know where the money came from, they don't know, or if you're like, we can't afford this, we can't afford that, like always bad talking money to your kids, that's what you're going to be embedded in them. And that's why they talk about the rich dad and the poor dad, because the poor families, they're always talking about money negatively. They're like, oh, we can't afford that. You got McDonald's money. Like, that's a lot of the things that people say to their kids when they're asking for stuff, when they're out at the store. Now, a wealthy family, they don't have to worry about that. Anything their kids ask for, they'll say, yeah, you can have that. Or, were you good at school? Well, we can buy that. It's never that we can't afford it. That's never a question, Let's talk about Blue Ivy. You think Beyonce ever tell Blue Ivy, we can't afford that. You're not getting that. I don't have money. Money don't grow on trees. Like, no, that's not a conversation that they're going to have, because, yes, money do grow on their trees. They're, our trees or whatever trees they have in the bank.
Whatever seeds they planted, yeah.
Right. So definitely there is a difference in the conversations between middle class households, low income households, and the wealthy households. And that's what he talks about in his book about his rich dad and his poor dad. His rich dad is his friend's dad, who actually was wealthy with the real estate industry. His poor dad was his own father, who actually had a really good job with the school system, but he didn't know how to invest his money. He didn't know how to spend it on certain things that would appreciate, assets that would appreciate in value instead of things that depreciate in value, like cars and clothes and watches, some of the things that we like to spend our money on in the Black community. But just like in my household, we always look nice. And I remember in a social class, I had like a social work class, because I used to take some social work classes when I was in college, and they would always talk about, if people would come in and they looked like they had money, don't look down on them for that, even though they needed this assistance, or like in the public assistance office with iPhones and things like that, because people feel like if they buy things and they look the part, that people will outside will like, okay, they're doing good. You know, if they're buying these things that they actually can't afford, they feel better about themselves. They look good to the outside world, and it doesn't look like they're struggling. It doesn't look like they don't have things. And when I worked at the welfare office, it was very, very depressing. That's what brought me to California. I always wanted to live in California, but I worked there for Christmas, and it was kind of like these families are setting their kids up because these kids don't know that they can't afford these things. They're using this public assistance money to buy these presents that they really can't afford. And they're not letting their kids know, like, you have to work hard for this money. They're showing their kids, like, okay, I'm not really going to work, but we got Jordans on our feet. We got, all these toys under the bed. But just to go back into
that's a really, really good point. Actually, I want to follow up on your point, talking about that. In our community, and this is something I'm dealing with now, I'm becoming an investor. So that's what I shifted myself into. So let me touch on that really quick before I go into the story. So Robert Kiyosaki talks about the cash flow quadrant. So that's the first thing that really opened me up to shifting my mindset and understanding what is money. Money is currency. Currency is what? Currency is energy. A current is energy. It's electricity. Right? So if we're thinking about, like, I like to break things down. I like to get into definitions. I like to get into what does something mean? What are the different definitions? Because when we speak, even the sounds that we make, if you're talking about law of attraction, you're talking about spiritual and vibrational energy, money, if you really want to get deep into it, you're like, money. It's a vibrational energy. So when you're saying the word money, how is that vibrating within your soul? Are you feeling anxious? Are you feeling good? How are you feeling? And a lot of us in our community, when it comes to money, we have a lot of negative vibrational energy around that word. So where does that come from? If we want to look at it historically, we want to take it deep.
Money is the root of all evil.
People think that and people can say that, right? But where does it really come from in our community? When I think about it, I think back to slavery. We were once a commodity. We were once a form of currency. Mm-hmm. Our ancestors were traded on the stock market, sold. We were considered to be black gold. So imagine that the pain and misery of us being as a community, as a tribe of people that came over through the diaspora, all that pain, and it's because basically they were extracting our currency, our energy from us in order to build the wealth of this country. And so it makes sense psychologically. And that's why I knew when I saw this class pop up called The Psychology of Money, and it was a 6-week group therapy. There were a couple of black people in it, but it was all kinds of people, mostly white people, funny enough, in this particular class. But it was like I knew that I needed to get my mind right and heal certain aspects of myself around money, because I knew I had some kind of an unhealthy relationship with money.
And it always goes back to slavery. It's that slavery mentality. It's that slave mindset. It's that just the thought that we didn't have any money. We never had any money in our pockets. We were sold to wealthy people. We were bought and sold, like she said, and then we didn't have money. We were
the money.
Yes,
we were the money, because we were assets that appreciated. If you were bought as a child, you appreciated, you peaked, and then you began to depreciate, but you still yielded returns through your children when you gave birth to children.
Of it.
Some of us did, but a lot of us did not. And those of us who did, like, say, for example, some of us who may have gotten something inherited or something was given to us post-slavery, or, during Reconstruction, I think some of us, or very few people, got 40 acres and a mule. What happened? Come and take it back. And that's been a recurring trend in the community as well. Like we get some kind of breaks or something that, you know, affirmative action or something like that. They somehow come and will it back from us. Like, oh, yeah, I know I said you could have this, but give it. Right. You know, they find some kind of way to like take it back from us. So I think over time that has created a lot of negative energy in our community around wealth, around money. And just a dysfunction with that energy because of the fact that our ancestors, which their DNA and blood still runs through our bodies, used to be a form of currency. And so to us, you can see why deep down that may create a negative association with wealth. Yes. Because we were being abused by wealthy people and used as assets, right? Traded, commodified in so many ways, you know, bred to create more assets, you know, to make them more money. I mean, I can't even begin to imagine what that must have been like for our ancestors. What hell they must have gone through to know that they were creating all this wealth that they could see from the shack, like steps away, people living good and couldn't get any of it. And so I can see how that can be passed down to generations. So anyway, I just want to get back into the cash flow quadrants. So Robert Kiyosaki talks about in his cash flow quadrant book, which is the kind of like the part 2 or the follow-up to Rich Dad, Poor Dad. What are the motivations for the 4 quadrants? So the 4 quadrants are employee, self-employed, business owner, and investor. So on one side, you have the employee and the self-employed, which they are the people who they are motivated by security. The employee in particular is motivated by security because you know you got that check coming, you got them benefits, you know where you're going 9 to 5, everything's structured, right? So you feel secure. The self-employed person is more motivated typically by self-determination. So they want to be their own boss. They want to be the person driving them, but they're still working for the money. Business owners and investors in particular tend to be more motivated by freedom. And so one of the things that I think one of the things I have observed in our community is we're still enslaved a lot of ways psychologically and spiritually, which are the deepest forms of freedom. Because you can get physically free, which we have first. Yes. Physically free first. Right? Then you can get kind of free. Maybe you can get kind of free, you know, I don't know what the next step is, but I do feel like there's an in-between phase where we might be right now. And then the next phase is freeing yourself mentally and then freeing yourself spiritually. Because I do feel like spiritually, our community is still very locked up in chains. Mentally, I think some of us are starting to get free and starting to wake up and starting to be like on the path that we're on, like trying to really understand what this game is about in America and how we can either partake of it or destroy it and create something new. But a lot of us are still caught up, like you said, the poor people at the welfare office who are Gucci down. And I wasn't like super into brands, but I did have an affinity for brands on a certain level. And I used to feel some kind of way. I would never wear a fake. Now, girl, I just got like a Dooney and Burke bag the other day, which I really enjoy. You know, it's a well-made bag. It's like $100 or something like that. And you know, there was still a little part of me that was like, oh, I wish it was like a Louis or a what. But then there was another part of me that was like, this bag is classy, it's fun, it's functional, and it's inexpensive. It's within my range of the price point. That's not where I want to put my money. I don't want to put $1,100 in a bag. I want to put $1,100 in the stock market or $1,100 in.
And I want to have $1,100 in my bag.
Right. I want exactly.
The bag. And I don't want anybody listening to think that we are downing welfare or downing getting help.
Girl, I got something about that.
Because I myself used the welfare system in a positive way where it did help me. You know, I had a daughter at a young age. I was 21 years old. I had my child, and I was going back to get my degree. And the welfare office did help me. They helped me with my child care while I was going to school. They helped me get my books. They helped me with my bus pass when I was didn't have a car. So They actually gave me $700 to purchase a car. So the welfare system is a great stepping stone to use when you need it.
Yeah,
and you have to use it though.
You have to be smart about it. That's the thing.
Because you have to use it.
Girl, it helped me get out of poverty. I want to tell y'all, the system is exactly what it's designed to be for if you understand money. Yes. That was the key. Because I was getting unemployment checks. I was getting food stamps. I was getting, what else was I getting? There was something else I was getting. I can't remember right now, but it was other little programs here and there that, you know.
And if you're not using it right, you're just looking for your next check. Like after you're done with your unemployment, then you're like, okay, how can I get my next little come up and this and that? If you're not using it correctly, you're just going to keep going in a cycle of welfare and a cycle of help, and you're not going to get out. It's designed to get you out for self-sufficiency. And if you don't have your mind in the right place where you're using it, even with a job, if you're using it to get something, oh, I want to buy a house, oh, I want to buy a car, oh, I want to do this. If you're not in a place where you have a goal, you're getting used. You're getting used.
So this is how I use the system. So once I started to learn and understand about money and what is a true asset, that's when I started to understand what I needed to do with my money. I'm like, okay, I'm broke, right? So then I had to shift my mindset to say, I'm not broke. Wait, I'm getting free money. Money I don't even have to work for.
Broke is a state of mind.
Okay, so I had to shift it. It is a state of mind. So I had to shift it. I said, wait a minute. I don't want to work hard. I want to work smart. Then I started shifting. I don't even want to work. I want my money to work for me. Mm-hmm. Then it's like, that, I mean, it sounds really simple, but it was I'm showing you how I had to shift my mindset through listening. It started with Robert Kiyosaki, but then I became hungry for it. And I started noticing there were free classes that I could take on money. It was with my union. Yes. Managing my budget. I started seeing these things. Then I noticed my union had a shoe fund that I had never heard about. And I could go to my union and they were going to give me $40 every 2 years for a pair of shoes. All I had to do was buy the shoes and present the receipt to them. And they would send me $40. And I started to notice all these things around me. That's why they say America is a come up. That's why people from other countries come over here and say, what is wrong with black people? You guys have all these programs and you're not using them. And I started to look at that, and this is not to shame or make black people feel bad. This is information to inform and inspire you, my fellow black people in America. These programs that are here, they want to keep us ignorant and listening to music about buying all that stuff that don't matter, because they know that they are still using us through our creativity, through all of the masterminding energy that we have. We're the biggest export that they still have in this country. Our culture, our music, our movies, our clothes, everything, our style. They're still making money off of us.
And brainwashing through the music, that's going to be a whole nother show that I'm going to touch on.
That's what I'm saying. So if we look at wealth is not measured in time. Wealth is measured in time, not dollars. This is according to Robert Kiyosaki. Let's think about that. Wealth is not measured in dollars. It's measured in time. What is the biggest asset that you have in your life is your time. You cannot get it back. No. It does not come back. You can't recycle it. You can lose money, get money back. You can buy a car, you can get another car, you can get a house, you can get stocks. You can lose your stocks would be worth nothing. Stock could go back up and be worth everything. Time is not replaceable. So one of the things he switched my mindset to was, what do I really want out of life? I want time freedom. When your time is your own, you are truly free. When you're an employee, you're trading your time for money. That's why people get sick. They get burned out. They start looking old because it's draining the time. You turn over that hourglass. You see it just draining out. That's your life force. The time that you have here is draining out, and someone's giving you. It's not worth it. I don't care how much you're making. Even you think about those athletes. They getting paid millions of dollars, and then they come out of the NFL busted up. Some of them, their minds are gone, and they end up committing suicide. but they got paid, how much? 20 million, 200 million.
And a lot of people will work. They want to say work, and then you retire. And then they retire and it's still not enough.
And they're sick.
I know my parents, both of my parents are retired, but they still work part-time. I'm like, what type of retirement is this?
Exactly. So getting back to, how to shift your mindset. If you start off and you thinking, oh my God, I hear people say this all the time. I work hard for my money. And I just kind of side eye them now because I'm like,
you gotta work smart for your
money.
And
I'm like, okay, I feel you. My money works hard for me.
Mm-hmm.
My money is my slave.
Right.
Okay? I breed my money. My money makes money. I got my money all the time out here making money for me, right? Mm-hmm. So when you start to think like that and you start to think about your freedom, like what is it that we really want? I want to be free to do what I want when I want. I don't want to have to work for anybody. I want to go get my nails done and sit up in a spa all day if that's what I want to do. I want to travel around the world. If I have an idea and I want to do something like what we're doing now where we're sharing information, that's up to me because I have that freedom. And so I started looking at those things and it started shifting me. And so what I would say for people to do is spend some time thinking about your earliest memories of money and your relationship to money and go back and acknowledge those things, forgive those things, and then see how you can shift those things. Take the lesson from it. It's called Sankofa. It's an African term that means go back and get it. Mm-hmm. It's symbolized by a bird that's turning its neck around to get the egg that's on his back. It's going back and getting that seed, that egg, that thing, that piece, that gem that's going to enlighten you from that experience. Don't look back and start crying, talking about my mama and them, and my daddy and them, and and all that. Okay, have that moment, cry, get it out, but look into it and see what was the good thing that my father taught me. My father taught me how to save and double my money,
and then he taught you what not to do.
Let me show you something, because this is how I flipped it. Because my dad taught me. And this is because he came from a generation where saving he was 15% at the bank. So saving money was good back then. You put in a savings account, girl, your shit would blow up. And you would have a lot of money in retirement just by simply saving.
Right.
That's not how it is now. So what my dad taught me was you save your money and you double it. So what happened to me, right? Because life goes in rhythms and cycles. When I started to save my money into the stock market, that's how I was saving my money. By putting it into the stock market, guess what happened within a year? It doubled. Because that was the energy. That was the positive thing that he gave me. That was the Sankofa that he gave me.
And that's what the vibration.
But what I realized is that I could not spend it. That was where I had to shift the lesson and get rid of the bad part and cut the, you know what I'm saying?
And let me just go, because I know she was talking about vibrations before, and then I thought about it, like a lot of people listening may not know what that means about the vibration. So if you don't know what that means, definitely Google it. I learned about it from YouTube. A lot of different people that I listen to, Esther Hicks, trying to think who else talks about vibrations a lot, because it's like a very deep concept that you have to be able to understand in order to know exactly what we're talking about. Because I remember I was at work and I asked the lady, like, so how are your vibrations? And she just looked at me like, and she didn't know what I was talking about. And it's just like,
that's a very LA thing too.
Yeah, yeah. Like vibes, like, okay, positive
Everybody's
vibes.
On vibes out here.
You can walk in a place, a restaurant, and you can feel vibes. Like once you get in tune with yourself and in tune with the energy and in tune with the universe, then you can feel people's vibes. Like what kind of vibes are people giving off? And when she talks about vibrations, it's like how you feel about something. Like if I go and I lock my bike up, and I'm locking up my bike because I think, oh, somebody might steal my bike, and I'm giving off that vibe that somebody's going to steal from me, then 9 times out of 10, they're going to steal from me, because that's how I feel, that's how I think, and that's the vibes that I'm giving off. So that's just a little touch on vibrations, but definitely you should Google that. But I also, go ahead.
Did you have something you wanted to say? Because I want to.
No, go ahead. I wanted to ask you a question.
Oh, go ahead. Ask me. Please.
So where did it first click with you about the prosperity thinking? You said you read the book, Robert Kiyosaki.
It clicked with me when I was down in fucking poverty and I was in the welfare office and this damn white man. Let me tell you about this experience I had. I was sitting in the food stamps office, right? And you're not in LA. It's a bunch of Hispanics here, whatever. A lot of them don't even speak English. Asian people say, like, you go to the welfare office here, and it is like a third world country. Like, not even trying to be funny or throw shade. Like, serious. It's people in there from everywhere speaking all kinds of languages. They got their traditions and customs, so they been there eating their food and stuff that they got. They be trying to sell you stuff while you in the line. Like, it is amazing. It's like a little village. It's kind of interesting. So I'm sitting in there, and this white man sitting next to me, and he was like, look at these people. I can't even believe it. They're taking all the benefits. And then I looked at him, and I think he thought I was going to agree with him, you know. And I looked at him, and I said, look, you sitting in here just like me. We all sitting in here together. So I'm not going to say they, you know, hey, if they can get it, why not? I can get it, you can get it. We all in here getting it. So, and he kind of looked at me, and he was like, oh, well, I guess you're right. I was like, yeah, we're all sitting in here.
That's the problem with the poverty mindset. They think there's a scarcity.
That's what I'm saying. He's in here. He was saying we all sitting in there waiting for them to call our number so we can go get our check and our benefits.
And there's enough for everybody.
And he's sitting up here talking like me and him can relate. And I'm like, we can relate on the level that we all sitting up in here trying to get these benefits. But I'm not going to sit here and shade Latinos for coming here and getting benefits if it's allowed for them to get. Now, politically, we can have a whole nother conversation about whether or not they should be allowed to do that, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. But the fact of the matter is they are at this moment.
And the thing is, you know, what people don't know, because I worked at the welfare office, what people don't know is that if they don't have a social security number, if they're not a citizen of this country, they cannot get the benefits. Their children can if they were born here. So for people to sit here and say, oh, it's not fair, this and that, they don't even know what's going on because those people are just coming to get benefits for their children that actually were born here.
I mean, politically, that's a great conversation. Maybe we can have that in another podcast because, you know, I have some views on that as a person who kind of, you know, listens into some of the ADOS talk and stuff like that. But one of the things I wanted to touch on with how things shifted for me. So when I became very, very poor and I started looking at, I was like, damn, I love the time freedom that I have. Right. I can do what I want. Now I might be living. I can see how people can get caught up in the system because you do you, and you just got to figure out how to keep these benefits going. So I can see how people can get caught up in that because you if you want to sit home and watch Maury all day or you know, meditate all day, or because I was doing stuff like that, going to yoga, you know, living that LA Cali girl lifestyle, hiking at 2 p.m. and you know what I'm saying, just doing me and going on my little lunch date with my little guys and stuff, you know. I was like, this is living in a way. Like, it gave me a taste of what it would be like to be wealthy. Right? It was the flip side of being wealthy. And so once I started reading the book, it also made me look at how I was spending my money and what is an asset. Do you know, Medea?
Yes, it's something that's going to appreciate and value, something that's going to make you money, like a house. A house is an asset.
It sometimes it depends. It depends. A house can be a liability. It's how you position it, right?
Yeah.
So if you buy a house, for example, and you have 3 bedrooms in your house, and you're renting out 2 of the bedrooms, and that's paying your mortgage, then you have an asset because it's providing money for you, and then you take your money that you have or whatever, and you do other stuff with it. But if you just simply have a house and all the money that you're working for pretty much is going towards your house and then your other expenses, then it becomes a liability.
Once you pay that house off, then you are able to, you know, if your children are going to college, you can...
It can be an asset for them, for sure.
You can take loans out on the house.
There are definitely things you can do with the house. That's why I said it can be both from things that I've read and studied. They say, you know, some people are in the hard no, it's not an asset camp. And some people are in the hard, yes, it is an asset. And then you have those people in the middle who are like, it depends on how you use it. Stocks, investments, life insurance. And I'm not talking about that term insurance. I'm talking about universal life insurance that you build money up into, and that you're able to draw from as a living benefit. And then you also have the death benefits, or sometimes they'll have something in it where if you get sick, you can take money out to pay for your health care.
Right.
So those type of things are assets. Investment properties, businesses, especially like franchises, things like that. So what started to shift in my mind is I was like, well, now that I understand what a true asset is something that's going to pay me. I started to look at all these programs that were out here that were just giving away free shit. And I remember I was going to this church and they were giving me free clothes and free food.
Mm-hmm.
Now, I was taking my food stamps and I was like, I want to eat healthy. So I started doing some research, and I found out I could use my food stamps at the farmer's market. So I started going to the farmer's market and getting the highest quality of food. This was a mindset shift, because I started thinking, how can I take where I'm at right now and maximize this money? So if I'm going to get food stamps, instead of going to the local grocery store or going to McDonald's, because I think they do let you use EBT and stuff at McDonald's, I was like, I want to be healthy, because health is wealth as well.
Right.
So I said, what can I do? So I found out, oh my God, there's a farmer's market right by me. I can go there and I can use my food stamps.
Which brings me to a point of a woman is an asset. You as a woman, you want to eat healthy. You want to cook healthy. That's an asset. These hoes, those are liabilities now.
They can be.
You know, they want to go eat out and spend up all your money. That's a liability.
Yeah, if you ain't got it like that now, some guys got it like that, so they like to, that they got their money, they doing all this stuff, and so that's what they want to enjoy is their hoes. So I ain't gonna hate on the hoes, but I look at, so that's how I started looking at things. I started to shift my mindset. Then it's like, okay, I have this check I'm getting every month or every week for like $300. And I started really taking a hard look at my expenses, and I started to minimize my expenses. So I started to go and call those monthly bills, like my phone bill, and renegotiate. I started getting rid of some things I didn't need. I don't need Netflix, or maybe I know somebody who has a Netflix account who don't mind me being on it. Stuff like all those little things. Like I noticed that some Hispanics that I knew, some Africans that I knew, they had a communal mindset. So what they would do is they would go on a friends and family plan. They would have like 10 people on it. Bill would be $15 a month, because they had so many people on this plan that it made the bill like cheaper, right? Now I'm on a friends and family with my brother and his wife.
Okay, great.
Little things like that start to reduce your expenses.
Yes.
Then you start to see that the amount of money you have left over is growing each week when you're getting your unemployment check and then your food stamps, right?
That's another thing that just to touch on real quick, that I learned about when I came to California. It was kind of a culture shock to me to see a lot of people in one house. And in the Mexican community, they do that. They will have like 3 generations in one house because they're paying off this house. So then the next person moves over here and then they start paying off this other house. See, we don't do that where I'm from because
folks don't get along.
Right.
I want to be by myself.
But the cost of living was low enough for us to have our own houses. So when I come out here and people are like, well, who do you live with? And I'm like, I live by myself. And it's like, oh, because they're so used to people living together. And like, even in the Indian community, I see them a lot. 3 generations living in one house, 2 married couples, like brothers and sisters, and then the grandmother and the grandfather are all living together because they're paying off this house and then they're going to go buy another one. So that is a good thing too. Where
it's a community building as well, because I mean, yeah, people gonna get on each other's nerves, but the bigger goal, the bigger vision,
they're working towards something.
They're working towards building wealth in their family, and they realize that little petty squabbles are not that's not gonna stop them from achieving the goal. They're going to get over that because they know that they're looking at their kids and they're thinking about their grandkids, and they're like, first of all, we want to take care of grandma and make sure she's good and has somewhere to be. Second of all, we want to make sure our kids are going to be all right and we can make sure they have the best life possible.
And let's stop making the landlord rich and let's make ourselves rich.
Exactly.
Let's make mom and dad rich.
So you have all these situations. So that was one. I just want to map this out for people, because some people are like, well, how did you do it? So I just started looking at it like that, right? And then I started like stretching out my food stamps so I wasn't spending as much money off the food stamps. So there were times when they would kick me off. There was this thing going on a few years back because I think so many people were on it because remember when the economy went down that they were kind of like finding reasons to kick people off. So because they do have a budget, so sometimes they get tight on their budget. So every once in a while they would kick me off the food stamps for 2 or 3 months, and I'd have to go down there and fight to get back on or whatever. They'd be like, "You made too much money," and I'm like, "Where?" Right. But you got to prove it, right? So I would start to cut down on, and as I was eating healthier, I noticed that I didn't need to buy as much food, right. So I started doing that. Then I started to look around and say, what can I do? Where can I get things for free that I can turn into money? The churches were giving away food and clothes. I would go to the churches. I would look specifically. There's places in LA. There are places that buy secondhand clothes and resell them. That's huge here. So I would go to the little church thing, look through for stuff that I knew was current, that I could flip. And I would go take it to a couple of the places around town. I would have a bag of stuff. I would take it, sell as much as I could to them. Then I would go online and put it on my online stores and sell it. Okay. And that's how I started to, bring in income. When I was looking like, this is an asset for me because I didn't pay anything for it, but I'm going to make money off of it. Right. So those are little ways that I started thinking, about. And then I started taking that money that I was making off that because I was pure profit. So it was money that I didn't have allocated to any other bills or expenses. And I would take that and I started putting it into my investment app. Okay. So that is how I got started. That's how I started getting myself out of poverty. The other big thing was I started taking some online classes with Dr. Boyce Watkins, the Black Business School. He had an investing class, free for 30 days. Girl, you better know I took that thing free for 30 days. I had a couple friends take that thing free for 30 days. Right. And I was like, give me your password, and then we'd be on there looking at it together. But one thing I did notice is people around me weren't as hungry for it as I was. Like, I would put them on to the stuff. And then I'd be still the main one, like, well, give me your password. And they'd be like, okay. I'd be like, I give you mine when I sign up. And then we can have 2 months of us looking at this and we can talk about it. They might get a few videos in and they be done. But because I wasn't working, I would spend day and night just watching those videos, taking notes, just learning, trying to understand what are the terms of the stock market. Okay, I understand the bull market. I understand what the ticker symbol is. I understand how to look at a company and kind of assess what the value is, if they're making a profit, what is leading to the profit, what is leading to the downturn, what are they doing to try to make the business better if they're in a downturn, and kind of assess that. And it's not like I'm any kind of expert right now. Some of it is a little bit of gut, and understanding things that you are interested in. That's what you should invest in because you know a little bit more about it. You have a little bit more intuition. So that's what I did. And so what I saw is I was putting money in little by little, and it just started growing. Just from that. So people can do stuff like that. Like, that's what America's about. There's home buying programs out here. Those Hispanics are taking advantage of the home buying programs.
They have a lot of programs.
In droves. And like what you're talking about, how many people are going to be living in a household? When I look at the breakdowns on those home buying programs, they have it up to 10 people. They're breaking it down, how much money. So even if you think about it, think about this, Medea. You're looking at a home buying program, they're like, one person, the cap is 54. 2 people, the cap is 72. Get all the way to 10 people, the cap is up somewhere around $100,000 or over $100,000, $200,000. And you're looking at that, and then you're looking at how much of a loan they can take out. So say you got 6, 7 people in the house.
Right.
And they're like, okay, cool.
3 of them are kids. They can't.
Yeah, we're going to give you this money, and we're going to give you all this money to buy this house.
Right.
All these people are living in it, and all these people are helping pay and contribute towards this house. You know how fast they're going to have that house paid off? Plus, they're getting home buyers assistance. So part of that loan is going to be forgiven in 5 years. That's the type of stuff our community needs to be doing.
But we want to look the part. We don't want.
We want to be one person living in a mansion and struggling to pay for it.
We want to look rich instead of actually being rich. That's the problem. But also, just want to get back to how we met. Because I remember you said something to me about when we met and we were talking that made you want to like, oh, I want to be cool with her, I want to be friends with her? I want you to just like touch on that real quick.
I don't remember. You gotta refresh my memory.
So like we were talking, and I think I said something about like my Airbnb, because I had an Airbnb that I was renting out. Like I had 2 apartments here, and that's funny. I'll just touch on it real quick because I had 2 apartments. I was paying for both of them, but I was renting one out on Airbnb.
Yes, I do remember that now.
And people were like, "What? What you doing?" Yes, yeah. Because the rent that I'm making at this Airbnb is paying for my rent over here. Like, yes, I'm still working, but I don't have to. I'm living rent free. You know what I mean? Like,
yes, that's what I liked about Medea, because when we started talking about that, I was like, oh, this girl knows, she understands money, because she's getting her money to work for her.
Right.
So even though she's here in the same place I am, and we're just getting like minimum wage to sit here and watch this show or whatever, she's got bigger things at play. So this is like probably her little extra money that she's gonna use for gas or whatever like that, right? And I remember thinking she and I are doing the same thing, because
and we was getting more than minimum wage now.
Like, for that particular one, it was a little bit more. It was like $1 more, maybe $2 more. But it was basically because I was doing the same thing. So I'm in a situation right now where I have a relationship with the owner of a 3-bedroom, 3-bath condo. It's in a nice neighborhood. The condo has a few amenities. So it's pretty decent. The relationship I have with them, they allowed me to take over the lease for $3,000, and I could rent out the rooms, and they weren't going to be involved in that. And so they were like, whatever you can get for the rooms, go for it. So I was at a place where I was able to get them to take on the majority of the payment for the rent, and I only paid $650. Now, law of attraction, I was looking and meditating because I wanted to get into a low income, because in LA they have, when they build new large apartment buildings, a lot of the developers will want to get kickbacks from the government or some kind of bonds or some kind of credits that they get. So what they'll do is make a certain percentage of them low income. So you can come in to a really luxurious apartment building, and if it's a lottery, if you get selected and you fit the criteria of a low income person, you can only pay $650 for an apartment that everybody else in the building is paying upwards of around $3,000 a month, like, $25 to $35 a month, right? So I was at first wanting to get into this, but then I noticed energetically I was in conflict, because I was like, I want to make this kind of money, I want to do this, I want to have multiple sources of income, I want to have multiple streams of income, I want to be living in abundance, I want to do, but then I was like, but I want to live in a really luxurious building, but I don't want to pay that much rent. So I kept trying to apply for these low income, and they kept rejecting me. And then I was like, God, what's going on? Then something said to me, you have to shift it. Shift your mindset. You don't want to qualify for low income. Right. That's not what you want. What you want is other people's money to pay your high rent in your luxury building. And I was like, yeah, that is what I want. So yeah, I only want to pay $650. How much rent do I want to pay? I said, I'm universe, God, I only want to pay $650. And then this situation came up. I got my tenants, and that's all I pay. So other people's money pay my rent.
Right.
So I have my money working for me. And when I met Medea, she had that same mindset, and she was telling me about the Airbnbs, and I was like, this girl is smart with money. Like, I've been asking God to bring more women and more people, period, into my life, that we can have these kind of conversations, so we can bounce ideas off of each other, so we can keep that vibrational energy going of masterminding how to increase our wealth and how to increase our asset ownership, identification, because friends can help you identify assets from time to time, and also just kind of enjoy life and enjoy the finer things, because once you get into this mindset, you're not going to ever say to yourself, I can't afford that. You're going to say, how can I afford that? Or you're going to say, I like that, I'm going to get that. It might not be in that moment, but you know that you're going to have the money at some point, sooner or later, to be able to afford the thing you want. You know how many times I test drove a Tesla? I'm getting a Tesla,
a white
Somebody going to give me one.
I got a white Tesla right on my vision board, too. And every time I see it, I say, oh, yes, thank you, going, there is my card.
That's right.
But the thing that I want to leave with,
I gotta wait that long line.
Yeah, you do. Look, I'm looking at it right now. But I had to eliminate certain things out of my vocabulary. I stopped saying can't. I stopped saying broke.
Yeah,
because
I haven't been broke in a long time.
Yes, I'm not broke. Broke is a state of mind. Broke is a mindset, and you don't want to be broke. You don't want to have a broken spirit. You don't want to have broken mentality. You don't want to be poor. Like, I'm not poor. I'm abundant. I'm abundant in wealth. I'm abundant in health. I'm abundant in love. So there's all these things that you just have to take out of your vocabulary. They talk about this with the law of attraction. Even when you're just joking, you can't be like, girl, I'm broke as hell. No, you can't say that, because that will attract brokenness to you. I can't afford. No, you can't say, how can I afford? Or, I'm not spending my money on that right now. That's what you can say. You know what I mean? Like, or I can afford anything that I want. I had to change from need to want. I don't need anything. I want it.
Oh, a good meditation on that note is, I have everything I need.
I have everything I need.
And start looking around in your environment. I don't care if you are homeless, okay? Because I see homeless people outside walking around. I see them walking around with more shit than I probably got in my house. They got 2-3 cars full of stuff. They got everything they need. Do. Okay? They got a tent rolled up in there and everything. When nighttime comes, you see them pop that tent. Girl, they be in there watching their phone, on the TV on their phone. Yes. I see these homeless people out here. So I don't care if you're homeless. I don't care if you are the richest person in the world. Start to meditate on, I have everything I need. And what I have noticed when I did that was that things that I needed started to show up.
Right.
They started to show up through people. They started to show up through programs. They started to show up through places and opportunities. I mean,
and you have to live in the now. Like, when you're speaking about it, speak about it like you have it right now.
I have everything I need.
You have everything you need. You can't be focused on the past. Everything in the past, you have to be grateful for. You have to be grateful for, what happened to you last year when you didn't have a pot to piss in or a window to throw it out of. Because that taught you something. Everything in your past taught you how to be in your present and in your future. So definitely.
And it's so true what they say about being grateful, about being thankful, because when I really started to look around, like, I always live in nice places. Like, that's just a thing for me. Like, I have to live in a nice environment, because I realize that where you come home to is so important. Because you're laying there, you're sleeping there, you're bathing there, you're cleaning yourself there. So if you are in an environment right now where you feel like, oh my God, there's roaches or rats or something running down, it's not that safe, do little things that you can to create some peace in that environment and start being thankful for it. If you have your health, be thankful for that.
Amen.
If you have some great kids, or even if your kids are bad, just be thankful that you got kids, because not everybody can have kids.
Right.
Be grateful for, find some things to be grateful for and focus on that. That really does work. I know a lot of people be like, oh my God, that's some bullshit. They just talking. Well, that's all metaphysical BS. No, it is true. I can say that. Like, when I think about where I was only 2 years ago, let's just take it back. 2015 is when I really got deep into this. That's when I really, and let me tell you about the Robert Kiyosaki book. If you don't have any money, do what I do. When I was broke and I didn't have any money, when I had the broke mentality, I would look for things that were free. And we are in the information age. I went online and I Googled and I Googled and I Googled, and I found Robert Kiyosaki's book. Somebody had uploaded it in 3 different pieces, 3 different people. Somebody had part 1, somebody had part 2, somebody had part 3. I found it, pieced it together, and started listening to it on an audio book while I was at work. And kept listening to it over and over again, taking notes on it and meditating. I listened to it probably at least about 10 to 15 times.
So I just wanted to close it out right now, but I just wanted to touch base on what is something that you are grateful for now that you may not have been grateful for in the past.
My life.
Okay.
I'm grateful for my life. Because I felt like at a certain point when I was down in the dumps, I was just like, everything felt like it was going wrong, and I was just like, why am I here? And I just felt like I just didn't even want to be here, really. You know, I wasn't necessarily thinking about killing myself or anything like that, but I just felt like I didn't really want, like, I was like, why am I here? What am I doing? Like, I feel so lost. Like, oh, what a waste of a person. That's what I was thinking.
And that's a sad place to be.
So now I look at myself and I say, I'm thankful and grateful for my life.
Amen. And when you connect with God, like, because the law of attraction, you know, whatever you call it, some people call it God, the universe, Allah, Buddha, you know, God doesn't care what you call him as long as you call on him. And when you connect with God, he tells you what a great person you are. He gives you that confidence. You know what I mean? Then you know, like, I'm here. I'm destined for this. I'm here to do great things. I am this being. I am this powerful person. And you know that you can do whatever it is you put your mind to. And anything that was programmed into you before from your family, from whatever the case may be. Because there's a lot of subliminal programming from, you know, the government or the news, whatever stuff that you're watching. There's a lot of things that go into, you know, who we are just from society. And God lets you know that you don't have to worry about none of that stuff from before, from your past. It's all about your now and your future, and that you can do whatever it is that you want to do. If you put your mind to it, if you think positively. You put love
shift
out.
Your focus, Yes. What are you grateful for, Medea?
I'm just grateful for the happiness that I feel every day now. You know, I do come from a place where, you know, I think about, or I used to think about negativity. I just say, and this is just recognizing that you have a negative mind. Just say, all right, hey girl, let's go across the street. Oh, I don't know, because we might get hit by a car. We might, you know, people are dying in the street. Just
catch those thoughts.
Right. Yeah. Just as soon as somebody has an idea or a thought or a plan, you just start thinking of all the bad things that could happen. Hey, mommy, I want to be a clown. Your feet is too little. You can't be no clown. You ain't even funny. You know what I mean? Just little stuff like that. It's like shift your mindset, shift how you think about things. Oh, baby, you would be the best clown. Look at your curly hair. Look at you, so funny. Look at those feet. You would be the they wouldn't know what to do with you at clown school. You know, just like, and that's what I had to recognize about myself. Like, I had no idea that I even had a negative mindset.
I knew I had a negative mindset, girl. That's a whole probably another hour conversation.
I
knew I had a negative mindset, and if you know you got a negative mindset, start to shift it. That is the biggest thing. Start to shift it, because it's your worst enemy.
It is.
And people want to.
You are your own worst enemy.
You can be, unless you shift it. It's three things: me, myself, and I. One of those is a negative Nancy. All of us have that negative Nancy inside of us. The other two got to keep that one in check.
And I can't even say that all of us have it, because some people don't.
Everybody, I don't know. I feel like we're human, and that's part of the human condition is to have doubt and, you know, everyone has moments.
You have to change
Everybody
that.
has
to change that negative self-talk.
Yeah, you just don't live there. That's the thing. You don't let that negative Nancy take over. You hear the negative Nancy talking and be like, girl, and you be like, shush up.
Right. So tell me this. What can you do? Like, what do you do, like, maybe even on a daily basis to help you stay out of that negative place, to help you from going back to that negative place?
I was having several moments over the past couple of days, because I'm trying to break through into something. And when you're trying to break through into something and reach a higher level, the negativity will emerge. So what I've been doing is something very simple: not taking it personally. Giving myself the moment to feel and acknowledge the feeling that I'm having. I even cried at my desk today because I felt frustrated about some things that were happening, and I was like, oh, wow, you know, this is so frustrating. This should be easy.
Right.
And I was like, I really feel this emotion welling up in me. Energy. And I was like, all right, I'm going to just have to go ahead and let myself cry, because if I hold it in, that's when disease and stuff comes in. So I would say, like, that's kind of how I deal with it. Like, I kind of just allow myself to feel it, acknowledge the feeling or the thought, and then say, that ain't got nothing to do with me. Let me focus on something else.
Yes.
Yeah. Because half the time, stuff we think is something personal is not personal. It's their mindset. It's their mindset that they're trying to put onto you, especially when you really start thinking freely.
Mm-hmm.
And in particular, I noticed this in our community. When you're thinking free, a lot of people in our community will be like, "How you gonna do? You can't do that, girl." It's like they come down on you like. It's a very strange thing, and we have that internally. So the first thing is to free yourself from that internally and say to yourself internally, like, that has nothing to do with me. I'm moving forward.
Mm-hmm.
Or acknowledge the thought. You can hear the thought, "Ooh, I look fat today." Maybe, but I'm still sexy.
Right.
You know, like just counter it. Just hear it, acknowledge it, and let it go.
I'm wearing this fat good.
Right. These hips looking extra juicy. Whatever you need to do to shift into that positive. And this doesn't mean like you don't acknowledge that sometimes you need to shift some things or change some things or move out of situations. It's just not living in the negativity of it.
I think when I start my day in a positive way, like I'll do a positive meditation in the morning, like when I first wake up, or when I'm in the car, I'm listening to something positive, like I am great, I am powerful, I'm having a great day, I'm grateful for waking up today, I'm going to, have my day be beautiful no matter what these outside things are. If somebody cuts me off in traffic, whatever, hey, they were in a hurry, go ahead. Things like that. And I think that helps me stay into a positive mindset all day. Like just starting off your day with a positive affirmation, just like a little 10-minute meditation. Like I have a lot of guided meditations that are awesome. I'm going to post those for you guys too, just so you can help yourself. And we're just going to leave with, definitely you have to read that book, Robert Kiyosaki, Rich Dad Poor Dad. That's definitely something that you should look into.
Or listen to it on audio. It's worth it.
Yes, you can listen to it on audio in the car. Definitely just recognize if you have a positive mindset. I'm going to actually post something else about that, just recognizing your own negative mindset. Because that's something that I didn't know that I had. Like I 10 years ago wrote this paper, which I'm going to talk about that later. So we're just going to close this out. Thank you guys for listening. I love you all. I'm grateful for everybody who's listening to this podcast. Please inbox me if you want to talk about something. If you have any questions, you can definitely send me an inbox. Email me at diawilliams@gmail.com. And I might even just touch on some topics that you guys might want to hear about. So,
thank you so much for having me.
Yes,
I appreciate it. I hope that you guys got something out of it. I hope that it planted some seeds of abundance in your life. And I'm wishing you love, happiness, health, and prosperity.
Amen.
What if I told you that you can actually and literally design your life? You can create a whole